All right. And if at any point you guys want to ask questions about something in the presentation, maybe something may interest you, you might want to get a little bit more in-depth detail about it. And if I'm able to give you that in-depth detail, I'd be more than happy to go ahead and start what I'm doing and kind of go a little bit more in depth with it. And if I'm not able to do that, I would definitely recommend you guys websites and different videos you guys can watch to get more information. All you guys have to do is just use the chat feature, or you can raise your hand. I'm fine with you guys raising your hands so that way you guys can talk as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's go present. All righty. So you guys are going to be enjoying a great presentation about the 14 grand challenges of engineering. So just to start off, my name is Kyandre Roberts. I am a freshman chemical engineering student. I might possibly get a computer science minor in the near future. And I'm a student here at North Carolina A&T. Aggie Pride! I just had to do that. I'm sorry. I got to rep my school pride, you guys. You guys know how serious this is. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I am very passionate about STEM. That's the reason why I decided to join NASB and become an engineer as a career. Now, let's start off by asking you guys a little warm-up question, okay? So, in your own words, you guys don't have to be too fancy about it or use a whole bunch of big words, but just tell me in your own words, what is an engineer and what do engineers do? Oops. Anybody can do this. Anybody, you guys there?
Okay, I think, an engineer is a person who builds stuff to help the economy.
You said what about the economy?
They help the economy.
Okay, that's pretty good. Can I get one more person to give their own definition of what an engineer is and what they do? No? Okay. Well, we'll move on. All right, come on, screen. There we go. So just a little brief summary of like the evolution of engineering. So you guys know that each era in time has pretty much their own grand challenges when it comes to innovation, when it comes to inventing things. It could be something as simple as the wheel, but if you think about it, the wheel has really helped us as a society. Without wheels, we would not have cars and a whole bunch of other things like, those mills. Another thing, like in the 1800s with the invention of electricity and the light bulb. This is really helpful because number one, I would not have this light right here without it, and we would be able to function to our full capacity without light. Cars, another important invention that has been made. This is how we are able to get around and do different things. And now we've even gotten to the point to where we can now create things that do work for us, like robots, things we can program and tell what to do. So now this is going to lead into our actual topics, which are the grand challenges. Now, the grand challenges are pretty much these are the different challenges that we have when it comes to trying to accomplish different things. We have the grand challenges of the 21st century that engineers are at the forefront of trying to accomplish. Now, I asked you guys earlier what an engineer is, and it's important that you guys understand what that is because you guys plan on going to engineering. Okay, so an engineer is pretty much somebody who addresses a problem. There's a problem in a society. The engineer addresses that problem, and they try to come up with a plan to help solve that problem. Okay, they come up with innovative methods and inventions to overcome that problem in society. And that's what engineers are currently trying to do with these grand challenges. So we're going to do our first grand challenge, which is advanced learning. Now, advanced learning is something that's trying to cater to all learning styles. Everybody has their own way of learning. We all think differently, okay? And this was something that was brought about after research was done about in the education field, with knowing how students learn differently. And so as a result, this has become a challenge. And so now you have scientists and engineers that are coming together to try to think of ways to better teach not just children, but even adults. Because, even as an adult, you can still learn things. There are adults who still get degrees and different stuff like that. So personalized learning can still carry over no matter how old you are. And so this is also a really good challenge. All right. And then another big challenge is solar energy. Now, you guys probably have noticed within recent years, solar energy started to become a little bit more popular. The main challenges with solar energy is it's still at a point where it's expensive. Now, it has become cheaper over the years, but we're still trying to make it a little more cheaper so that way we can have it more popular, more people can use it. It'll be used more commercially. And then also another challenge that we are trying to figure out with solar energy is how to make it more energy efficient. As of right now, solar panels are only about 10 to 20% efficient, which is pretty low. But I do have this one video that I want to show you guys where you have this research group that they're trying to use different chemicals and materials to create a solar cell that is much more efficient. So let's go ahead and start this video. By the way, hold on. Can you guys hear the video?
No.
No? All right, just a moment. Oh, God. All right, just a moment. Let me go ahead and fix that for you guys. Okay. Now, I apologize for that. So you guys should be able to hear the video now once I start it. There we go.
Two percent of all of the solar cells that are being manufactured now are made of crystalline silicon. Perovskites are exciting compared to conventional semiconductors used in solar cells. Perovskite refers to a certain crystal structure.
Some of the great advantages of perovskites are that they are a thin film technology and can be easily printed on plastic substrates, very flexible, lightweight substrates.
We report the discovery of a new perovskite semiconductor with a small band gap. We were able to use it along with another perovskite that has a high band gap to make a tandem solar cell.
One of these solar cells absorbs high energy photons, so that's blue and green light. It uses this to generate a high voltage. And then the second solar cell, which has a much smaller band gap, absorbs lower energy light, such as the red and the infrared. When you stack these together, you sum up their voltages and you can reach higher performance than you ever can for a single solar cell, so we can have that combination of low cost and highest possible performance.
I'm very optimistic that we will have panels with efficiencies above 25%. We already have 20% when these materials are optimized. We're going to be able to get a world record efficiency of 30% in 3 to 5 years.
Alrighty, so you guys thought that was an interesting video. It's pretty cool what they're doing with solar energy research right now. All right. So our next challenge is going to be virtual reality. So you guys already know what virtual reality is. You guys probably seen one of those big goggle looking things that people kind of do little weird things with because they're in a different world, and so they're trying to explore that different world. But it is a really great invention that has come about in recent times. So what engineers are trying to do with virtual reality are they're trying to fix some problems that deal with picture quality. In fact, if you guys look at this picture right here in the top corner right there, you guys see that it's not the best quality. In fact, I think this is an older virtual reality picture right here, because I don't think I've ever seen something like this, but this is what you would call the screen door effect. And so engineers are currently trying to always improve the picture quality of it, so that way it will look better, look more realistic, rather than looking like something that is like an old film or like a screen door in this case. Another thing that engineers are trying to do are they're trying to improve the actual realistic feel of the environment of virtual reality. So they're trying to improve the sensations of smell, touch, and sound. And so we're able to do this. Virtual reality can become a very big thing because we already using it in different things, such as we're using virtual reality to help people with certain phobias, such as, somebody who may be scared of heights, for instance. You can use virtual reality to pretty much go into a world or an environment to where you're like standing on this tall cliff, and you can pretty much possibly get over your fear of heights just by being in this virtual environment where you're on this cliff. And it's a whole lot safer than actually standing on top of a cliff in real life. And so that's one good thing about virtual reality. You can do whatever you want to do with it, and it gives you a real experience without actually being there in the real world. So next slide, reverse engineering the brain. Okay, now when we say reverse engineer, you guys already know, or in your minds, you guys think of taking something apart, maybe improving it to your own desires. But in this case, we're not talking about actually taking apart the brain, like literally taking apart the brain and trying to do different things with it. Instead, what the reverse engineer the brain challenge is about is we're trying to actually emulate the human brain. We're trying to understand how it works, so that way we can make different applications of it in different fields, particularly in artificial intelligence. Now, what we can use artificial intelligence for is on your phones, you guys probably have the speech recognition. Definitely Siri, who is pretty much like a human who's on a phone. You can have conversations with it, ask Siri a whole bunch of different questions, and it's pretty cool to kind of play with if you think about it. We can also use this challenge to come up with ways to treat people or help people, particularly older people with illnesses such as dementia. Especially because, at that certain point in your life, if you come up with that kind of mental illness, you start to forget things. So if we are able to master this challenge, we can come up with ways to repair brain cells for people who are affected by those kinds of mental illnesses. And then, of course, we can always improve computers with the reverse engineering the brain challenge as well. Our next challenge is the medication challenge. Now, this is also a major challenge as well. And so with this, we're trying to Now, one, always develop new drugs. That's always going to be a challenge for us. But most importantly, with the medication challenge, we're trying to come up with ways to treat patients with personalized medication. And so that is one of the biggest research topics as of right now. In fact, this is something that I'm currently researching myself here in college right now. But you have different things going on. You have scientists that are trying to come up with polypills. And for those of you guys who don't know what polypills are just pills that contains different medications in one whole little pill or tablet. And so that really makes it easier for people who are older and have a lot of health issues, and so they have to take a lot of medication. In fact, you guys probably have somebody who might be older in your family with a lot of health issues, and you guys probably have seen them take a whole bunch of medicine at once, and it may be harder for them, especially if they're older, to memorize, to take this medicine, take this pill, take this, take that. So that couldn't be harder for you, especially at older age. So creating things like polypills can really be helpful for people who are affected by those conditions. And so we have to, as a challenge, we have to be able to assess a patient's genetic profile and understand their biochemistry, because each pill or each person is going to react differently to different medications or even the same medication. We all have different response times. For instance, if I take a pill, my body may respond faster to that pill. My body might be able to produce the biochemical reactions necessary to intake that pill a lot quicker than you if you were to take that pill. And so those are things that we have to overcome with this challenge. All right, then our next challenge is the health informatics challenge. Now, this is going to be something that, especially right now, this is a good topic for us right now, because you guys know we're currently in a pandemic, which involves a new virus that we had no information about. And so we had to spend some time trying to, number one, even come up with an effective test for it. And then just the research behind it and actually come up with data, reasonable data, that would help us understand how we should approach this virus. And so with the informatics challenge, we're trying to improve the quality and efficiency of Medicare and enhance our response to widespread public emergencies such as right now, but with the quality of the medical care. And so as a doctor, you may have this patient who is sick with something, right? It could be something that is rare that you may have encountered a long time ago. And so in order for you as a doctor to successfully treat this patient, you might have to do some research. And so with the informatics challenge, if we can improve this, it'll be a lot easier for doctors to come up with treatment plans for their patients a lot quicker if we are able to actually achieve this challenge. All right, so next, the infrastructure challenge. So with the infrastructure challenge, we're trying to, number one, modernize fundamental structures. So infrastructure, when we say infrastructure, infrastructure is a wide range of things. It could be buildings, it could be freeways, even your wastewater management, different sewers and different stuff like that. All of that is what you would call infrastructure. And so in 2005, this is actually something that was very shocking when I found out about it. But in 2005, the American Society of Civil Engineers, they were going around and they were grading different types of infrastructure. And the average grade was a D+. Now, this is just 15 years ago. So you can imagine probably by now it might have gotten a little better, but that's still that's not really that good. And we could do better with the infrastructure for getting those kinds of gradings by civil engineers. And so with this, we're trying to improve infrastructure so that way we can withstand natural disasters, terror attacks, but most importantly, growing population stress. It's important that we understand that the population is growing at an exponential rate. Just 100 years ago, we had hit the 1 billion mark globally for the first time. But as of right now, 100 years later, we're over 7 billion strong. So that should just tell you how fast we're growing as a global population. So we need good infrastructure to support us. All right, so our other challenge is the clean water challenge, which is still a problem to this day. This challenge can help us come up with solutions to deliver clean water to especially underdeveloped societies, people who are far away from water. And so this can be something that can really help them. And they will also try to come up with ways to clean water itself, like come up with sanitation processes. And so right here, I don't know if you guys can see, but in this picture right here in the bottom left corner, this is Jaden Smith and his water invention, his water cleaning invention that he came up with in response to the Flint water crisis. And you guys might remember what happened with the Flint water crisis. In fact, that is still going on to this day, if I'm not mistaken. And so he did a really good job of coming up with something that the citizens in Flint can use to clean their water that has a very high concentration of lead and other things that are dangerous to the human body. And so I also want to show a video to go along with this challenge, and it talks about water sanitation in this particular area in Africa.
Okay. Any sanitation system that doesn't treat waste locally in developing countries should be illegal. We know the #1 pollutant to water is lack of sanitation. It's the #2 killer of children worldwide under 5. Hundreds of thousands of liters of untreated waste are getting dumped into the Ganges every single day. This is happening in every waterway in the world. When cholera was introduced in Haiti, one untreated toilet killed 10,000 people and have sickened 500,000 people. So we know it's time to deal with this, but we also have to deal with it in a new way now. It's not enough to have a sanitation system that's just collection. You have to treat waste locally, affordably. You can't hike it in and out everywhere. We have a responsibility with what we've done to the earth to not cause any more problems. Every solution now has to address multiple problems. Like our sanitation system, you end up with finished compost, which helps in agriculture, which helps clean the water, treating waste, which helps with child malnutrition, productivity for mothers. We have to lighten the load for the earth in multiple areas rapidly together. You have to have technologies that you can fix in the middle of nowhere with whatever local materials they are. You can't be waiting for customs for things to clear for 6 months. And you can't be waiting for a generator that runs on gasoline that no one can afford, that breaks or gets stolen. And I am hopeful. I also believe in the magical genius of the human race.
Right. So moving on. All right, so next one. The next challenge is going to be finding ways to get energy from fusion. Now, this is something that has already been demonstrated. We've actually already came up with processes to get energy from fusion. Now, for those of you guys who do not know what fusion is, that's pretty much when you have two nuclei that comes together to form a larger one, and as a result, there is energy that is released. A good example of fusion, a real life example of fusion would be the sun. The reason why the sun is able to provide light and never run out of light is because you have hydrogen atoms that participate in the fusion process where they come together, and as a result of that fusion process, they emit light. Okay, so that's the energy that's released. And so the challenges that we are faced with here on Earth is the fact that we have to work extra hard to increase the energy output of fusion because unlike the sun, we're a smaller planet. So we lack that strong gravitational force, heat, and pressure to really increase that energy output for fusion. And so we really have to come up with processes that can actually recreate those characteristics. And then once we are able to do that, we can actually use fusion to provide energy to more commercial proportions. And I also have a video to show with this that does a really good job of visualizing how the fission works and the future of it.
Providing energy from nuclear fusion is widely regarded as the grand engineering challenge of the 21st century. Unlike fission, where the atom is split to produce energy, in fusion, two lighter atomic nuclei are merged to form a heavier nucleus. This is how stars transmute matter into energy, and this is the main goal of plasma physics research. An international experiment fusion reactor under construction in France, ITER, aimed at demonstrating that fusion power can generate energy. The IAEA has played a key role for ITER's creation and its endeavours. To make fusion power commercially viable, a number of serious technological challenges will have to be overcome. A plasma with temperatures exceeding 100 million degrees Celsius, 10 times higher than in the core of the Sun, has to be confined and controlled using the largest magnetic fields ever produced. Finding the right materials and the mechanism that will extract and convert the enormous amount of energy are also among the major challenges in producing electricity from fusion. Through various international cooperation activities, the IAEA promotes innovation that leads to more efficient and affordable nuclear technologies.
All right, so that is what the future of fusion energy is going to look like. So our next one is going to be nuclear terror. This has actually been a challenge that has been around for quite some time, since even the Cold War days. And so with this, what we're trying to do, we're trying to come up with ways to detect potential devices. And so we also have to come up with ways to create a method that's good as an emergency response in the case that we're in the situation of nuclear terror. And so rather than just coming up with something on the fly or as we go, which can severely affect people, as we see right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, we had no way of knowing what this virus was about. And so we just kind of learned as we went along, but people were still affected. And so that's another major challenge for nuclear terror. Another challenge with nuclear terror is we have to keep up to date with nuclear materials and weapons, so we can be in the loop about this stuff. All right, and our next challenge is going to be the nitrogen cycle challenge. Now, I understand that somebody that's in middle school, so I'm just going to go ahead and give a little brief summary of how the nitrogen cycle works. So nitrogen is a gas. It is diatomic in nature, which means that there's two atoms just by itself in nature, which is why we have N2. Now, nitrogen is the most prominent gas in the atmosphere. In fact, it is like 78% of the atmosphere. So you have nitrogen in the atmosphere. The problem with the nitrogen in the atmosphere is that it's not readily available to be used for life. Like we as humans cannot take in nitrogen. And so what you have to make nitrogen more usable is you can have events to where if a big storm was to come, lightning could strike those nitrogen items in a way that nitrogen can literally split and then it can actually be used for humans. And then also, we also have nitrogen where you have nitrogen being used by bacteria and plants. And when they're used by bacteria and plants, you have this process known as nitrogen fixation. Now with nitrogen fixation, nitrogen is converted into a form that is more usable and supportable for life. And so with plants, once the plants do nitrogen fixation, we intake those plants and we are able to take in that nitrogen, which helps with our bodies because we need nitrogen for our proteins and different stuff like that. And so the problem that we have with the nitrogen cycle right now is the fact that the nitrogen cycle has been disturbed. We actually have more nitrogen present. And the reason why is because of the increased use of fertilizer. Also, nitrogen oxide is being produced from the burning of fossil fuels. And then we also have more nitrogen being produced from planting legumes, which are pretty much a class of plants that use a lot of nitrogen fixation. So they're producing more nitrogen than other plants usually would. And then our next challenge, which is also one of the major grand challenges of the 21st century, is the carbon capture and storage challenge. And so with this, there are already been ways that we can capture carbon. In fact, there's already a carbon capture plant that has been created. And so we demonstrated that process of capturing carbon dioxide already. Now we just have to improve our ways of storing carbon dioxide, and then not only storing, but integrating the systems of capturing it and storing it at the same time. So that is something that engineers are at a great amount of work they're trying to do right now. Because as you guys know, the carbon dioxide that we produce is one of the #1 contributors to global warming, because carbon dioxide is a heat trapping gas and it's contributing to higher temperature across the globe. And so I also, well, before I show the video, this picture that you guys see right here to the right, this is actually the first carbon capture plant, which is in Switzerland. So now I want to show you guys a video where they talk about the different types of carbon capture methods that are already been demonstrated.
Climate change is a big problem. Land clearing, intensive farming, burning fossil fuels like oil, natural gas and coal. These human activities all produce greenhouse gases. We need to slow down and reverse global warming. And it's gases like carbon dioxide or CO2 that we need to reduce. The Australian coal industry knows it plays a role in the problem, and we want to play a role in any climate change solution. That's why we're investing $1 billion in carbon capture and storage. It means we capture the CO2 emitted by burning fossil fuels, compress it into a liquid which is transported to a storage site, then store it safely and permanently deep underground. There are hundreds of active carbon capture and storage projects worldwide. This video will show you some of the key methods being used. In pre-combustion capture, coal is combined with oxygen to create a gas. It's made up of carbon monoxide and hydrogen. Adding water to this gas causes a reaction. It converts the carbon monoxide into hydrogen and CO2. The CO2 can be safely captured, while the hydrogen is burned to drive a turbine and generate electricity. It can even be used to feed fuel cells for cars. In post-combustion capture, the fossil fuel is burned as normal. But before the flue gas travels up the chimney, it passes through an absorber column. This is filled with liquid solvents called amines, which absorb the CO2 before it can enter the atmosphere. Superheated steam is then passed through the chimney. This releases the CO2 from the amines, and it can now be safely captured. The last of the key capture methods is the oxy-fuel process. Before combustion, nitrogen is stripped from oxygen in an air separator. The leftover oxygen is then purer than the normal air we breathe. When combusted with a fossil fuel, it produces CO2 and water vapour. This combination is put through turbines to generate electricity. Afterwards, the water vapour is cooled, condensed and removed, and the remaining CO2 gas is safely captured. Those are the three main carbon capture technologies: pre-combustion, post-combustion and oxy-fuel. The captured CO2 is what scientists classify as inert, meaning it's like many naturally occurring gases, very stable. After the CO2 is captured, it's compressed at high pressure. This turns it into a liquid. Once in this state, the liquid is transferred to a suitable storage site. If it's close by, trucks are used. If it's further away or large volumes are being transported, we use pipelines. In the US alone, there are pipelines stretching thousands of kilometres, and they've been safely transporting CO2 for enhanced oil recovery for years. The next step is storing it safely and permanently in deep underground rock, a process known as geosequestration. Storage sites are carefully chosen. We select ones with vast stores of porous rock deep underground. This porous rock is like a sponge, filled with millions of microscopic holes. As we inject the liquid CO2 into porous rock, it spreads through the gaps and fills these holes. Directly above this porous rock is an impermeable layer. It's non-porous, meaning it has no tiny holes. It acts as a cap that the liquid CO2 can't break through, trapping the CO2 from escaping. It mimics a natural process. Hydrocarbons, like oil and natural gas, have been doing this for millions of years. Over time, the CO2 can be dissolved in salty, non-drinking water, or react chemically with surrounding rock, producing stable carbonate minerals. We're also trialling storing the carbon in saline water-saturated rocks, depleted oil and gas fields, and coal seams. So the carbon is captured, transported and stored safely away from the Earth's delicate atmosphere. But the process doesn't end there. A sophisticated monitoring system is in place to keep track of our stored CO2. Monitoring is done on 3 levels: the subsurface, the soil, and the atmosphere around the site. Capture, transport and storage techniques have all been successfully used for many years. The challenge now is creating a fully integrated system, one which can be built into new power plants and bolted onto the existing ones. Think of the difference this will make. Successful carbon capture and storage projects are underway all around the world. They're a critical part of any solution to climate change. You can follow their progress on New Gen Coal.
All right, so that was a really nice informative video right there. So now let's go ahead, head on. Cybersecurity. Oh, this is going to be a really helpful challenge. And so with the cybersecurity challenge, the purpose of this challenge is to protect the confidentiality and integrity of transmitted information. Now just because of the times that we live in. We live in the age of information. So information is constantly being transmitted and shared with each other, whether it be on social media, even do your banking and financial transactions, and even down to the military, different things like that. Information is always being transmitted and shared. So the problem with this is that information, especially with the technology that we have, can easily be accessible, okay? You have people out there who hack and do different things like that. And that's the reason why, for all you gamers out there, I have a picture of Watch Dogs right here. If you ever play Watch Dogs, you guys know that game is all about hacking and controlling different infrastructure, getting information in people's phones and different stuff like that. So that's why I included that there as a little picture. But no, in all seriousness, if we can really accomplish this challenge or become this challenge, we can improve the security of the power grid, banking, and the military. So these are very important things that we have to definitely accomplish in the 21st century, because as of right now, people are still at risk of being victims of hacking and different things like that. All right. And I also have just a really brief video about cybersecurity.
There's a new protocol that's being adopted, and ultimately the World Wide Web will sort of become the worldwide mesh, where every device, these devices in your pockets, aren't just going to be spokes into an internet that's self-organizing there. They're all going to be part of the web, all self-organizing their communication. So these devices will not only be sending and receiving your own messages, they'll be transmitting other people's messages, and it'll all be self-organizing. That will be extremely decentralized. There won't be a central hub that people can attack. And if portions of it go down, information will route around it. I think it'll be very robust then. At a different level, we have to worry about our own information, things like privacy. I mean, it's already the case. We do very personal things on our computers. We don't want people taking them over or looking over our shoulders, so to speak. As computers go inside our bodies, and not to mention our brains, we'd like to maintain privacy and control of those computers. So it becomes even more important. So it becomes a very technical issue how to do that. There are more and more powerful ways of actually providing protection, and also more powerful ways of breaking it. It's going to be a continued cat and mouse game. One thing that's encouraging, though, is that encryption has actually gone at a faster rate than decryption. It gets very technical, but yes, it's definitely an engineering issue to keep our information private and controlled and secured and keep the whole internet infrastructure secure.
All right, there you go.
There's a new protocol.
All right, and so this is our last and 14th challenge. And this is a very influential challenge right here. Now, flashback. You guys remember how I asked you at the beginning of the presentation, what is an engineer and what do engineers do? Okay, so you guys gave me pretty good answers, okay? And so I told you guys that engineers, as an engineer, you address a problem in society, then you come up with a method or way of solving that problem by creating a solution for it. Now, as an engineer, we have to factor in different things when creating a solution, such as financial costs, the ethics of it, engineering ethics that we have to abide by, and other things that are more business related in that sense. But with scientists, scientists are people who are more so concerned with the research and the explanation of different things that happen in the natural universe. So they use experimental data, and then they use that data to come up with conclusions and then actually explain what's going on with their scientific data and why things happen. And so that's really the main difference between engineers and scientists. Now, the reason why I say all of this is because in this challenge, we see the most unity with scientists and engineers. Now, engineers, as an engineer, you're going to be working with a whole bunch of different people, okay? Engineers work with scientists all the time. But with this, it's imperative that engineers work with scientists. More than any other challenge or other field, we need engineers to work with scientists with this. So I'm going to tell you guys what the scientific discovery challenge is about. So with this, we're trying to answer questions, the biggest questions we always had about nature. Okay, this to go into the space arena, even down here on Earth, about the human body, about things in nature, different things like that. And so we need the combined work and effort of engineers and scientists to come together, because as a scientist, we can use the scientists to help explain the discoveries that we made in these with these questions that we've been asking for a long time. But the scientists need the engineers to come up with the technology to facilitate that discovery. And so so just as a great example of ways that engineers in their quest for discoveries of nature will be the microscope, okay? The microscope, great invention, very innovative, allows scientists, particularly biologists, to look at life at a smaller scale, and not just life, but other things too. You know, there are other things you can use a microscope for that are really small that can't be seen with the unaided eye. And so the microscope has really been a good example of how engineers have been able to help scientists in their quest to answer questions about nature, different things in the field of science. And so what the research for this includes, as I mentioned before, space technology. We still doing different things in space. We're trying to figure out different things about space, if there is life out there, other chemicals that are present on other planets and different stuff like that. The only way we can actually figure out all of those questions, be able to answer all those questions, is if we use engineers to come up with the technology to go into space and actually find that information. And then, of course, we can apply this with biotechnology as well. So That is all of the 14 grand challenges right there. And so I want to take a little break. Let's see what time it is. It is 11:50. Okay, so I want to come back at 12 o'clock. At 12 o'clock, we're going to do a challenge, a competition, I should say. You guys do not have to actually lead the call right now. If you guys want to go to the bathroom, eat, or do whatever you guys want to do, guys, go ahead and do that. Stretch a little because you're going to need your brain juices flowing for this competition. It's going to be the Grand Challenge competition. You guys will be in teams of 2. You guys are going to have to come up with some great ideas to solve these grand challenges. I'm going to randomly choose 2 grand challenges for each round. They're going to be 2 rounds, and I'll talk more about it when we come back. So go ahead and come back here at 12.